Well, they might resolve something. David Ward indicated he would be away, and it was agreed verbally at the meeting that Mayor Cadogan would be the acting chair. However, we didn't formally resolve for that. So asking the committee to accept the late item and then move a resolution in terms of appointing an acting chair.
I'm happy to move both of those recommendations, just with the removal of or another person on recommendation 2.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. I'll hand over to you, Mayor Cadogan.
Thank you for that, Jules. Thanks, team. Namahara mai. We'll start today, so we've got a few meetings, but I will do a whakatauki at the start of the day. Mudi ake whakarungi, okay? If ever we've needed to be onwards and upwards, it's today, I suspect. Welcome, everyone. I've got an apology from Dave Ward. I'm looking around, I think from an executive point of view, we're all here. Yep, done. So there's, and I'll move Dave's apology, please. Seconded Councillor Finch. All those in favour?
Aye.
Anyone got declarations of interest, late items, urgent business? Move to agenda item number 1, which is the minutes. I've read them, so I'm happy to take. Oh, sorry. Do we need to record or something, team?
Livestream is going.
So
So we're just having a bit of trouble.
It's the teams that we're getting working, but live stream.
So we're still okay to go with the
Yeah.
meeting?
Yeah.
Done. Okay, so I've read the minutes and I'm happy that they're showing correct records, so I'm happy to move them. Someone prepared the second. Councillor Ludeman, any discussion on the minutes before we put to the vote? All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? First item is work plan. Sharon, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. No, I'll just take it as read and just note that we still don't have all the information back from our insurers to bring to you yet, because there's an awful lot of forms to fill in, especially around public liability and professional indemnity. So hopefully we'll have all that to bring to the council meeting on the 26th.
Straightforward. That was the only one question I had was it here? It's not. Do you know when it's going to be shown? Is that?
No, it's some of it they're out getting terms for now, and then they've come back with some more questions, which Trey's working through. They send it away to get people to quote for it, and then often the insurers come back and ask more questions of the brokers, and then they need to know more. It's quite a process. Like, they ask about how many building consents we do a year, all sorts of really random things to know what kind of risks there are, I suppose.
So yeah, what are we? June the 12th or whatever. They would have to get back to us before the end of the year so that we can. What happens if they don't? Because it can be a meaty figure.
Last year they didn't, and they had to get out because they had trouble securing a professional indemnity and public liability, because the New Zealand ones that insured us pulled out of the market totally, and so they extended the current stuff for 1 month to enable them to go and get terms.
So
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just on that, do you need to just go a lot earlier on the insurance next year?
Through Your Worship, we did.
Okay.
We went about a month earlier this year, but it's just it just gets harder and more questions and more questions and more questions. But yes, we will definitely do that again next year. Another month earlier.
1st of July start quoting.
Yeah.
okay, we've got a recommendation there. Someone prepared to move. Moved Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Herbert. Any further discussion? All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against. Now, is Peter there?
He's going to be online.
He was going to be online, and we're just having a bit of trouble connecting it, unfortunately.
And the other one's Steve. How do we? Yeah, welcome.
You might be here now.
Oh, yes, looks like he might be there.
There he
Yes.
goes. Come on up. So, who am I going to? Am I going to?
Oh, that's fine. So Peter's available to answer any questions as well. I'm just standing in for Peter. Yeah, just happy to thank you. Happy to take the report as read and invite any questions through your worship.
Questions, team? Councillor Herbert.
So just on page 30, when we're looking at the top risks, and it starts with the inherent risk in the yellow box there, the first yellow box. And then we apply the controls, but it doesn't change, it's still high. So once normally if you've got a risk, it's at whatever level, you apply the controls and it normally drops, doesn't it?
Peter, you did this one, so I might pass that to you. Yeah, it might be frozen.
Definitely frozen.
I think
It's not a major question, it's just you kind of see the shift in things, and
yeah.
I just read that and thought, well, possible times moderate equals high, and it's still, once we've applied the controls, it's still the same.
Yeah, I think my best possible kind of answer for that right now is probably the existing controls has potentially not affected the inherent risk rating as much
Not
as
major,
what
not
the
major.
future controls.
Just scribbles on my page.
Any further questions, team? Peter, are you with us now? Is there anything you wish to add?
It's very quiet.
Can we just, you haven't got your volume to change, have you, Peter? We've maxed ours.
You're very quiet, Peter.
Not really.
Not really, no. You'll have to yell.
So I will yell, if that's okay, but if you can hear me now to answer the question. The risk rating didn't change. It moved forward in view of the actions taken, but not sufficiently to change the risk rating. Thank you.
It's funny because, you know, you think of the risk has been high for a long time, and yet I've never known a more riskier period than the one we're in at the moment. And yet you look down through it and yeah, they're there. We've said that it's high, you know, it's no use calling it extremely terribly high or something. So it is what it is. I appreciate that it makes you focus on it, and yet when the risks have been all apparent for so long, the risk almost becomes the norm, doesn't it?
Through you, Your Worship, if I may.
Yeah.
In the report, you'll note that there's a number of actions that will actually go to the point you're making, and in the future reduce the risk rating. One of the key things is the education and awareness program that we're looking at commencing in July. Through working with each department.
Pete, can you turn your video off? The sound's going on and off. So hopefully that'll, if you reduce the bandwidth from your video, we'll be able to hear you. Thank you.
You couldn't hit us with that again, could you, Peter? It was Morse code.
Okay. Can you hear me better?
Yeah, that's better. You're coming through now. Go for it.
So to your point, Your Worship, the education program that we're intending to commence from July will proactively engage with the department activity heads and their staff, and that will increase the understanding in education.
You still?
I've got a very bad echo, so I'm just trying to work between it. And that work program over the following 6 months will go forward to reduce the risk.
I think just the environment we're in it until September the 3rd or whatever, and the natural sequence of events will either take the risk down or ramp it clean up. But all I was saying is that risk was an extreme. It's now becoming the norm. Is there any other comments, team? Councillor Kennedy.
Just a comment, a good report, Peter, easy to read, and yeah, no, thank you.
Councillor Payne.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Look, and some of that risk is not manageable from our perspective. I'm thinking, like you've got Tamata Arawai, and we don't know what we don't know. We're sitting there, and it's going to be a long time before we do. And there's also the top one, risk number 2, up there, managed response to the impacts of central government. Well, there's plenty of impacts that we don't know the answers for. So the risk will be high, and in fact, perhaps inevitable.
Okay, team, we've got recommendation back on page 24. If there's no further discussion. Move Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Volwela. Any discussion before I put it to the vote? All those in favour? Aye. Those against, thank you. Sharon and Donna, we've got the capital project report, category A.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just give a quick update on the Datascape ERP project and then hand over to Donna and the team. So we are progressing well for a 1 July go live. The team's out training the community libraries at the moment. We are every day finding little quirky things though that we do need to do, but we're very confident we can pay a bill and send out the rates really in the new year, but we are expecting a few teething problems as we go, but it's looking pretty good.
Question specifically for Sharon. It's, I'm hearing about it, but I don't quite understand it because it's operational. I know there's a big change in computer. They haven't asked for my assistance, so presumably they've done control. That's about how deep I am, but is there something big's happening? They're going to push the button on July the 1st, isn't it? Does anyone specifically have questions for Sharon, Councillor?
Quick one, any chance that we can have a tour when things are open and running and we can actually look at the stuff stuff on the ground?
Absolutely.
Well, it's like such a big project, it'd be nice to actually see it in the flesh.
We are having, Lauren has daily meetings with the Datascape people. We have weekly internal meetings and weekly external meetings with them as well. So there's like lots of chatter going on, but yeah, absolutely, that'll be good. Yep.
Friday afternoon.
Councillor McAtamaney.
Yeah, thank you. So if, Sharon, if things do go haywire when you get rolling, can you switch everything back to the old system if you needed to?
Through you, Your Worship, we could. We just have to input everything we've done again. We're going to have to do that for a period of time anyway. Excuse me, because we have a cut-off date of all our transactional data goes on the 27th. So we've got 4 days. We've got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday that we have to do on both systems. And we're actually going to strike the rates on both systems just to give us that additional comfort level that it's the same number. And if it did go haywire, which I don't expect it will, we would have to go from the 1st of July and just enter everything into the old system as well. But it could be done.
Yeah.
Councillor Volwela.
And again, through you, Your Worship, you're getting good support from the Datascape people.
Yes.
Are we sort of guinea pigs, as it were, sort of first cab off the rank with this?
Through you, Your Worship, we were supposed to be guinea pigs last year, but nobody actually went last year. So yes, we are. But we're not alone. There's about 4 guinea pigs this year.
Okay. And is this? Do you know if this is something other councils are going to take up after this as well? It's something that will be.
I believe so. I know there's a few that have it already. And regional council, Otago Regional Council has it for part of it, but they don't do the rating in there. But they're looking at doing that now. And so yeah, I believe it is. It's moving into more councils. Right. That's their aim anyway. So hence they are working really hard with us to make it smooth and work well, so that there's good stories.
So Sharon, is it correct that it's the next version from our current supplier anyway? So it's like the upgrade of what we're already using from the same vendor.
But totally different. Same people, totally different.
Hypothetically, you know how it goes away. You know how if option 1 was to be taken, I'm not saying that it is, but if it was, so that is over there on a computer, but we've still got to have input now. It's standing totally alone. So the computer that you've got now is for an organisation that includes all 3 waters, all the everything. When that goes away, what does that mean to the computer? Is it sort of underutilised?
No, through you, Worship, we still have to do everything we do. we just don't have the water cost to deal with. Like, we still have to pay bills, we still have to set rates, we still have to, everything still has to happen.
Yeah.
It's just that water's not in amongst that everything. You still
Yeah,
have to
you
do
still
everything.
have.
It doesn't change what we have to do.
Doesn't mean a
Just-
third of the work goes away.
I wish.
It does. It's off on another one. Are those 4 councils on, all 4 of them on different computer schemes? Do you know the computer, whatever that they're on?
I agree.
Is there any commonality?
I know one of them uses the same budgeting system, but that's about all I know.
But through you, Your Worship, to be clear, the new, if it's an independent CCO, that water entity will be setting these systems up for itself.
Yep.
So it'll be about those activities from those other entities going into a new, or part of the setup will be how is that water CCO going to do the budgeting, going to do its billing and all those sorts of things. So that's a separate bit of work that would need to be done by the CCO as part of the setup process, if that's where it heads.
Okay.
I mean, that is a cost for the single council CCO as well. The intention is that would be, you'd have some of those independent systems potentially under that option.
And actually, so you, on that single council CCO, would still use that one server, wouldn't we? We wouldn't go away and get another server. Keep it, wouldn't you just have, we're not going to go and get 2 servers.
Well, we do a lot of stuff in the cloud now, so it's not necessarily what's in that room. But the intention is that it would be, I mean, that's why the single council CCO actually does have some higher costs, because it's intended to set up separate systems than what you have now. That's not what you do under option 3, which is an in-house business unit. You still got to ring fence and separate all the water activities, but it would still be operating under council system. Whereas the intention for a CCO is that over a period of time, if not straight away, they would be looking at their own systems for doing those things, only for a water business, not for all of what council's activities are, which are much, much wider, with building control and all sorts of things in there, animal control, payment portals online, all those sorts of things are not required for a water CCO.
And through you, Richard, I think another thing to note is for a period of time, some of their services won't be available. You won't be able to pay online for about 4 or 5 days. You won't be able, well, you can through your bank, but not through our My Datascape portal. I think there'll be some stuff that you won't be able to do. But the staff are awesome. They've agreed to work weekends and stuff to get through this. So weekends and long hours.
So question please, then if somebody goes to pay, then there'll be just a pop-up comes to them explaining.
Yes, we're going to organise some communication around when we get the final cut over dates and when we're out and when we're back in.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
So we'll move, so you're done, Sharon, and we're done with asking Sharon questions. Next one we're moving on to is Denbar with Balmoral to a Peka. Kia ora, Denbar. Can't wait for this beast to be up and running.
Thank you, Wasif. Good morning, everyone. I take your
Morning.
report has been read. And if there is any question or you want me to take you through the reports?
I'll take it that, we've read the report, it's 5 pages, surely everyone's familiarised themselves with it. Just questions, team. I was waiting for it. Simon.
Yeah, I'll leave the fibre one alone because it seems to be sort of itself out in due time. But the commissioning date, are we really on track for late August?
Yes, we are. We'll start commissioning from June 27 at the Borefield and finish late August.
Yeah, it just seems, still seems
So
lots of it.
we'll not finish late August, we'll finish early August, late July.
Still confident, okay, yep.
You realise a lot of us are out of here on the 12th of October. We want a roadie trip before then. So. Further questions, Dave? Councillor Lowell.
Yes, I will raise the one about the fibre. Obviously, there's problems there. if they're ploughing the fibre into the ground, I mean, presumably the ducting would have been a more safer or less likely to be damaged in the future. I presume the duct was actually right beside the pipe, was it? Laid with the pipe. So does that sort of make if they're ploughing the fibre into the ground now, would that tend to make it more vulnerable to damage? Like you've sort of got two pipe and then the fibre is at some distance from each other, and so there's sort of two things that could be damaged.
So for the fiber, we are going to plow it, but with the duct, new duct. Just
So it's a new duct.
yeah, we'll put new duct and fiber through it, and then we plow. And it will be below 400 mm.
Sorry.
Below 400 mm of ground surface.
Right.
And pipe is below 600 and more, from 600 to 800.
So will it be basically on the line, in the line of the pipe?
Yeah, on the top of the line of the same trench.
Okay. Thanks for that.
So, I just confirm that you're coming back over this, not going up the road, because that was talked about as an option.
Sorry?
There was talk of pulling that cable up the side of the road. Has that been ruled out?
Yeah, we had a talk about that in our in-house meeting, and like councillor raised, if we were gonna plow just fiber, it will be vulnerable for settle down. It might break, so we went with made a decision to plow with the duct on the same line, so we don't have a two line going through at the same scheme.
So that means a whole heap more shoddy fencing from Southern Trenching.
Yeah, well, all that, those costs and everything is southern trenching.
Yeah, I'll be there with the cattle prod this time.
Okay, team, specifically on this item, is there any further questions? If not, thank you, Dunbar. We'll go on now to, thank you, Milton Main Street Group, which is Nico and John. Or Donna.
Tom's going to.
I was just going off here, sorry, John.
No, that's okay. John,
Have we got,
John's online. He got stranded in Monica yesterday with the iron.
so is that him there, is that still there?
That's me, Mr. Mayor.
Kia ora, John, how are you?
Thank you, sir.
Floor is yours, John, is it? Who's the? Right, floor's yours, John.
So this is for
Milton Main Street Group of Projects?
Milton Main Street project.
Yeah.
So as of the last meeting, we have completed all the remedial works. As per the information on the report, we have issued a publication stating the cost to be incurred by the contractor, and a final walk-over inspection has been completed, and it was signed off by CDC roading inspector as well as ourselves with the engineer representative for CDC, who was responsible for MSQA, and myself. So we all agreed, and with the contractor as well. And we all agreed and signed off the walk-over inspection that everything was in accordance with the requirements for the footpath.
Through you, we should, John, I appreciate you're online. It's actually the slumping State Highway 1 pipeline renewals project.
Okay, so for the slumping State Highway 1, so we've had a discussion with the consultant responsible for the design, and there needs to be an additional investigation on on the private properties on the west side of State Highway 1. So the investigation they did was on footpath, which they determined that the lateral invert was 3.5. So the objective there was to confirm the inverts of the laterals, to see if we can raise the invert of the new wastewater main to at least 2 meters or 2.5, instead of going as deep as 3.5 to 4 meters as determined by the CCTV and the investigation that was done previously on the existing sewer. So this is to reduce significant costs in terms of if we go as deep as 3 meters to 4 meters, there will be a significant cost with the shoring or trench shielding required to secure the trench when installing the new main. If we raise it up, then we wouldn't be using that much, going that deep. But if we can determine the inverts of the laterals on the west side, if it's as deep as say 1 meter or 2 meters, then it's probably more cost effective to directional drill new laterals for these customers, including the school, across State Highway 1 into the new wastewater main, and we can raise the new wastewater main inverts to at least 2 meters deep. So the consultant has come back with the concept design, but it's not quite what we briefed in the beginning. So we need to move to the east side as much as possible on the parking lane, as close as possible to the curb and channel, just to keep it away from any further, disruptions or issues on the State Highway 1 if there's any more bursts or cracks in the new pipeline. So the contractor is now, the consultant is now engaging their subcontractor, ISACs, to conduct these field surveys, additional field surveys, with the property laterals on the west side. But until then, we will confirm whether to raise the inverse of the new wastewater line or remain at 3.5, 4 meters deep. So the other objective towards that approach is to avoid encountering contaminated soil if we go as deep as the existing wastewater line. So, but at the moment, ISACs, who is a subcontractor to Florence, completing the field survey, has come back and advised that a few days ago that they're waiting for NZTA to approve their temporary traffic management plan to access the footpath and do the work on the footpath as well as in the private properties on State Highway 1. So that's the update there. It was initially expected for the final concept design to be completed and the detailed design to be completed on the 12th of May, which is today. But then due to those new developments, we have to push it back a little bit until we confirm, all these matters before finalizing the design.
Through you, the
So
worship.
that's the update with the.
Thanks, John. I'll just add a few things as well, because I spoke to the contractors and the professional service provider this morning, because I wasn't sure if John would be able to Teams in or not. And quite frankly, the contractor put a traffic management plan proposal into NZTA. NZTA were not prepared to give us approval to enter the estate highway unless the contractor was prepared to, once they've done the sampling, there was a couple of areas that they had to sample on the state highway, and the asphalt mix that NZTA's contractors had laid a year ago in that area is a specialised mix, which you can't just get, because we'd basically only need like a wheelbarrow size to spot fill those areas. NZTA would not give approval unless the contractor would use the same specifications of that mix. It was completely non-cost effective because we'd have to bring plant and machinery from outside of the district. So they wouldn't give approval. So consequently, unfortunately, I only just found out this morning, and I'm sure Jules won't be that happy either. 2 areas we're going to have to go into our brand new footpaths because NZTA would not give approval otherwise for the traffic management plan. So that's very disappointing. There's nothing we can do about it, otherwise we won't be able to access to do the sampling, which is critical because we're trying to save a lot of money with the lateral work proposed. So I was going to talk with Di after today. We might have to do some kind of comms going out. That work is planned to start next Tuesday.
How much footpath?
It's two sampling areas near the 4 square.
Yeah, but how big the meters?
About a metre square normally, I think. Don't quote me on that though, but it's roughly.
Kim, followed by John.
Thank you, Your Worship. Donna, I just want to establish the sampling. Is this to find out the contamination levels underneath? No. But when do we do that? I see that this is the greatest risk to me, from a $2 million project to goodness knows what. And I'm just wondering, how do we know that? When do we know that? How?
So through Your Worship, we've already done that. We did that urgently probably 6 weeks ago when we first raised this at the first meeting.
Yeah.
And the understanding currently is that it's an acceptable risk,
Yes,
that it's not
it is
as
acceptable.
dangerous as what had originally been considered and thought.
Right.
So what we're doing now is, as John's alluded to, they're called laterals, the bit that goes from someone's house into the pipes. What we've ascertained, we did an early contractor involvement meeting as well, and we all meet around the table with professional service providers, and we've come up with scoping that we can do the work in the parked lane area closest to the footpath, and we want to do like a step approach, so that the stormwater is at one level, and then the wastewater would be at a lower level. Yeah, so that would be significant savings. The only issue associated with that is if the laterals, as John pointed out, on the west side of the highway are too deep and too low. That's what we're investigating now. And John also advised we were hoping to have all that work completed, and we would have been able to give you a response by today, but unfortunately there's been some delays.
Thanks, Tom.
So I've got Councillor Herbert, sorry, that's my machine.
Thank you, Worship. Look, I'm pretty sure my concerns are being dealt with. But I sort of, from a practical point of view, sit and go, you're raising a pipe from 3.5 metres to 2.5 metres, you're lifting it up a metre over a very short distance. If someone flushes their toilet, it's got quite a fall now, but it's not going to have quite a fall over a very short distance, aren't they? Am I understanding that correctly? If you're going to lift the thing in the road a metre,
Depends. Maybe, so I'll answer some of it, and then John, if you want to step in here. So on the opposite side of the highway, they're currently about 3 to 3.5 metres deep, and that's what we're investigating, because depending on the gradient and the fall, it is achievable. But we're just doing that investigative work now, because as you can imagine, a 550 length by a metre depth by 400 or 500 wide. That's what we're trying to reduce the cost and removal of that material, which would be significant.
so you're talking about altering all the laterals and lifting them all up as well?
Where we can, yes, and where it needs to be.
Well,
If it's more cost effective.
Well, sometimes laterals don't actually go in, they actually go in at a shallow level and then go down to the pipe.
That's like it's plumbing, isn't it? If it's the distance between yourself and the worship now, it's dropping a metre, and you're lifting it up a metre, and it's going to be flowing almost. That's my concern. Is you're going to get 50 people that can't flush their toilet. Just I'm looking at devil's advocate.
Quite often laterals are only a metre deep, and then right as it gets to the pipe, it goes down to the main. Usually the main's at that depth.
Okay.
For
Yeah, 65 degrees.
Yeah.
So that's fine. Just you can imagine that it's hard to make the proverbial go uphill. That's all.
4 metres is very, very deep for a public servant.
Okay.
For us,
It's all in hand, I'm sure. Just when I read it and you're lifting a pipe up a metre, I'm like, oh.
So I think I've got pole position Payne Finch, no, Graham Finch.
Through you, I don't want to question your methodology. And there's 55 laterals going across the road. Did I pick that up right? There's going to be.
Sorry, John, can you answer that? I'm not quite sure of that level of detail.
Says reconnection of 55 laterals.
Yeah.
Right, so how's the cost difference?
Correction is breaking up. Correction is breaking up, but I can pick up that there's 5 laterals from across the road. So the reason why we're investigating this is to weigh out, the cost of drilling 5 laterals instead of, at a shallower depth, instead of installing 500 meters of wastewater main at a depth of 3.5 to 4 meters deep.
Yeah, the reason I ask is how does the cost stack up for putting 55 laterals? Is putting a main down both sides of the road? Or is
Through you, Worship, that was more expensive. We did look at that option.
Right.
Because you're double trenching. So you're doubling up the work requirements, you're doubling up the material being moved. We've already looked into that.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Finch, followed by Wheeler.
Thank you. So there's money that can be made available from other projects that can be deferred for this urgent job. Are there any projects that we need to be made aware of that are going to be deferred? Because there was nothing about that.
Through you, Worship, that was at the annual plan decisions meeting.
Oh, that's
those were
right.
those projects.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry. Thank you.
What were was that the magnesium?
There was the Milton manganese,
Yeah.
there was the Milton tokuidi.
Yes, extension,
Yeah, but it was, so we ticked all through them.
There was about 3 to 4 projects.
Yeah, I remember that now, thank you.
Councillor Wheeler, followed by South.
Thank you, Worship. Just to John or Madonna, we've got the project updated program milestones there, which is on page 43 of our agenda. I presume that now is with just what you've told us, Donna and John, that's sort of will have to be revised again.
Correct, yes. So at the time of writing of this report, these were the proposed or assumed dates.
And just going back to the issue that Councillor Graham raised with the laterals crossing the road, I think there's only 20 odd laterals that actually have to cross the road themselves, like the ones on the west side. It's just the ones on the west side that are crossing the road, isn't it? The ones from the east are really going to basically stay in the same location as it were.
Through you, Worship, that's correct. And the laterals that we have the biggest concern about, as John mentioned, are the ones closest to the high school, because they're about 3.5 metres deep currently. So we definitely have to be sure before we make a decision.
Does it shallow off as it moves towards moves south, or is it basically a constant 3.5 metres deep all the way?
Through you, Worship, John, are you able to answer that? I know there is a gradient, but I'm not quite sure of the level. So Councillor Vawaila's inquiring, does the the wastewater pipe, is the depth, and I'm pretty sure it is from memory, but the depth closest going south gets closer to the highway level, doesn't it?
It's on the maps.
So Donna, can you repeat that? The depth
Councillor
going south?
Yeah, Councillor Vawaila's just inquiring the depth of the wastewater pipe as it heads south. It inclines closer to the state highway, yes.
It's 3 metres at the cross street, 2.9 metres at the cross street Union Street intersection. According to our.
Yes, it heads south. Depth heading south is as low as the existing one. So it won't be a problem if we raise the inverts for the new pipeline, because it all flows towards the south, where the treatment plant is way on the other side of the south side of Milton.
Thank you.
So you're finished, Bruce?
Thanks.
Years ago, I went with Juno. It was just the starting of a flood in Milton, and it was up there. There was, as the stormwater system got overwhelmed, but certainly inundated, there was a manhole, and the houses on the coastal side of the main road started filling back up with the stormwater. If we lift it by a metre, does that mean that it'll happen more? Because it was sort of a metre more to get away. Because all the houses, it was sort of 3 or 4 houses down the road, the state highway worked as a dam, and all the water went there and then went back. If we lift that stormwater up, will it affect the flood?
Through your worship, that's a good question. I will pass that to you, John, to consider. But what we do know currently is that a number of these laterals do have blockages.
It's just something, because I can remember that we were standing there and you're thinking the water was going to go away, and it didn't. It came back up through the stormwater. There was a great big main thing, and they bubbled the lid off and went.
This is stormwater, surge, not stormwater.
Yeah, but they were lifting the sewage and stormwater. As I took it, they were lifting both pipes by a metre.
The stormwater will remain the same depth.
Same depth, sorry. As you said.
But
Okay.
if our proposal works out as cost effective, it will actually help to reduce those issues, because the current laterals, a number of them are blocked. So if it's cost effective to put new laterals in, that will actually improve.
Then just thinking, everything's still sort of work. People still flushing their toilet as such up there. There's the school, which primary school and high school is 500 or something, is it? Kids, I suppose. So there's quite a bit of sewage being made up there. And in the last week or so, we've finally had the saturated soils from the rain. If there's inundation, because the pipe's all broken and there's inundation, there's still sewage going in, are we doing regular checks around that there's not some contaminated pond bubbling up over somewhere that we're not? Are we doing, because that crap's still being produced, it's got to go somewhere. Are we sure that there's somewhere isn't a pond somewhere that ORC finds before we do?
Through you, Worship, I'm pretty sure that operations was managing that side, weren't they, Linda, doing extra sampling?
So there's the high school and the primary school, there's all the houses, the toilets are still all being used, and in the last week we've finally got saturated soils. Are we checking sort of on a daily or a regular basis? That sewage has got to go somewhere. We're presuming it's just heading on out. But are we just doubly checking that there's no pond or sewage under a tree over by the school or something?
We've done some testing in Creek, Salmon Creek, so we tested upstream, kind of where the road is, and then further downstream to make sure there's nothing going into the waterway, and we're comfortable with that. We don't believe there's any other overflow that's happening, because people would report that pretty quickly.
Does it change sound with saturated soil? You know, the inundation, the pipes.
So you still smell, you'd get smell. I think that's what would alert most people. Yeah. There's a lot of ILI in Milton anyway, infiltration. Mm-hmm. So when you have heavy rain, that obviously dilutes a lot of stuff as well. But there's no evidence from any walk that we've done to see if there's anything untoward.
Are we doing them regularly?
No. And I noticed the slumping hasn't got any worse either.
No.
Sorry.
No. Further questions, Tim? If not, we'll move to the next one, which is Mount Cooee. Come on, pages. Walking down. Kia ora, team. Mount Cooee, eh?
Morning, everyone. I take that everyone read the report. If there are any questions.
Questions, team?
Granted the consent, woohoo.
Yeah, that was Cosmos.
Well done.
This is, oh, okay. Ali, you go.
I guess we're into the consent, which is really good. So will we do a media release or something to say that we're on track? Because, you know, when you think about the comments in the community that have been around, I'm wondering if it would be a good time to perhaps let the community know that the consent, exactly what's happening.
Through you, Your Worship, I just think, as it was raised at a previous standing committee meeting, and you'll see in the standing committee report, the volumes have dropped and the economics are marginal in terms of the go, no go for Mount Cooee. So while we have a consent, we're not convinced that the decision that you made previously needs to be reviewed. So we're doing more work and we're getting some more information to come back to you to look at the risk of proceeding versus of not. And there's potentially other options that we can look at that were flagged in the previous report as well. And we want to look at all of those things and bring them back to you to review that decision. So whilst it's great that we've got the consent and we do have the opportunity to build it, it's not the be all end all. Yes, we get on and build the new cell because of those drops and those reductions in volumes of what's coming in. And it's pretty much very marginal as to whether under a current operating model it's viable to continue with Mount Cooee, but we want to bring that back with full information to the council for you guys to look at that information and then review that decision to proceed with Mount Cooee.
So when's that report likely to come?
We want to do it pretty urgently, and we also, the other work's urgently carrying on with the additional capacity for Mount Cooee as well, because that's still an urgent issue. We really need this rain to stop because we need a few weeks of decent weather to get in there and construct the extension to the kidney area of Mount Cooee. It's projected that that'll give us another 12 months, but we need to crack on with it either way.
Yeah, obviously we need to.
Right. Can I just ask through the chair, what you say, Jules, that excuse me, the volumes have dropped. Do we know, is that through builders or just general waste not going there? Or?
That's part of the work that we want to do, is do a bit more waste analysis and look at trends from, say, our top 5 customers over the last 3 years, and potentially go and meet with some of them and have some discussions with them about what's dropped and where. So part of what we want to bring back to you is some analysis of the waste stream and some commentary from discussions with those customers as well. So we haven't done that yet. The intention is to do that, and that will be inform part of that decision process, because if we get some feedback from some of our big customers that reduction is likely to continue, or they're looking at other options, that also impacts the future viability of Mount Cooee.
Councillor Volwiller, followed by McTamaney.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, at the last meeting was mentioned there was a landfill, I presume it was a clean waste disposal being constructed somewhere else in the district. And there was weighbridge and everything there. Do we know anything more about that? What sort of waste they will be taking? We
do know about that, and our understanding is it is a clean fill and it is a permitted activity under the regional council under the plan. That's the indications that we've been informed. We followed up and found out some info.
So, just does that? In the past we haven't been taking clean fill, have we?
Well, we changed to fully charging for clean fill, and that meant that we didn't usually get most of it. But yeah, we have looked at a potential clean fill on site at Mount Cooee. There are risks with taking in clean fill. There's been instances in Southland where a property owner's been left with a liability because a clean fill's actually, they thought it was clean fill material, but it's contaminated material that's come onto their property. So that is a risk with anyone operating a clean fill if they don't have a really good handle on the material that's coming into it.
And just one more question then, going back to consent. Are we happy with the conditions of the consent? There was nothing out of the unexpected that was imposed in the conditions there, so.
Through your worship, the conditions for the consent include conditions for design, construction, operation, and closure of the landfill and aftercare. So there's various activities that are looking at it, including our operations team, the projects team, and so far the work that's being done, like Joseph alluded to, is looking at the economics of it. And I think we have a better picture when that report is done in terms of what is the impact on the construction cost, for example, or some of the requirements that are in the consent. But I think from our observation, they're quite standard. Average that has been granted to other councils as well. So it's quite standard what we have been given. But we have to look at our volumes and see how economic it is.
But there was debate around some of the consent conditions, and I think we've settled on what we think we can live with. It's always a balance between trying to argue the point and then dragging it out versus actually we've got it, we know what we're dealing with, we have to deal with that. So yeah, I think other than a bit of debate around the consent conditions, we're reasonably happy with it in most cases.
Councillor McNamara, followed by Grant.
My question was the transfer station. So you're working on a design at the moment. Will that design, I'm imagining if you were to remove waste or send elsewhere, is the design you're doing, will it have to change to accommodate different process? Say we went to build a landfill and
through your worship, yes, it does affect the current operation, and that's why we are working with our consultant Becca and our operator Westcall to make sure that the transfer station design is functional and complies with the consent conditions and provide the traffic management that the operator needs to run the landfill efficiently.
I'm wondering, my question was, if we were to transfer waste out of the district, another option, is that designed for the transfer station? Can it cope with that if we don't go ahead with the landfill?
Yes.
That's the intent for the design to be multi-purpose. There might be a temporary pad that's put down just for get us through a period, but then ultimately that's part of the discussion about reviewing the design to make sure it's going to work if we transfer it on site versus elsewhere as well, before we pull the trigger on progressing with that transfer station.
Councillor Grant.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Probably to the point that Jules was making about finding out why we're not getting the waste where it is. Is that not a success of their waste minimisation? Have we not got a bit of a catch-22 here? Is we want the volume to make it viable, but we want to minimise the waste, but then it gets to a point where it's not economic. Are we never going to win, or are we ever going to? We're not going to get a balance ever, are we?
Through you, Your Worship, it is a dilemma. It may not be that our waste minimisation has been successful. It might mean that our charging regime is such that it's economic for people to look at other options. But you're absolutely correct, and that's why some of those other operating models that we do want to consider and bring back to you once we've got appropriate expert advice would be whether we continue to operate Mount Cooee or whether someone else operates Mount Cooee who's got to focus on the commercial nature and we focus on our waste minimisation, because we've always got that dilemma that we're trying to meet our waste minimisation objectives but get as much refuse into Mount Cooee so it's economically viable. So that'll be part of what comes back to the council to look at different operating models that might resolve that tension that we currently have.
Okay. Yeah, I want to congratulate Lola. I went over to the dump the other day and it's moved 10 yards forward for the first time ever. I I got it because like the house was a mess with after the roof. So I had the roof, the spouting, had a washing machine, the ashes and general rubbish. And they were really good at, like half the trailer load was metal. So that went in the metal skip. That never went. And that's off the Everett's and that. And they showed me all the places. And I went to all the places, and then I came back to get weighed, but I'd emptied the whole trailer out. I wasn't meant to, of course. So they had nothing that could charge me, so I found a flaw in the system. I was meant to come back with the general rubbish and get weighed, but I got it confused. But it was good to see there was 5 different streams of rubbish going everywhere. And all my life to just go up to the face, a whole blooming lot over it. You're on your way, so it was good to see them doing it. More questions now that I've admitted that I probably got away with about $20 worth. None. Cheers, team. That brings us to there's one more. There's one more.
Yep.
Milton Community Pool. Don't go anywhere, Donna. Saw the team in here with Steve and Kim and that the other day, so it's good to see they're still enthusiastic and going about their bits and pieces. Do you have anything you want to add to your piece of the report?
I'll take the report as read, and as of last night, I've received the high level pricing, but I definitely want to go through it line by line as a comparison before we move forward with anything from there. But that has arrived in, which is good. And then the next step is for me to basically put my financial head on and go through line by line what was originally scheduled with the detailed design, what's been proposed, and also what additions have been added in. So remember when we came to council with the $19.4 million required budget, which had like your car park asphalting and internal fit outs, so on and so forth. My understanding is some of those costs have been added into this price that's come in. I need a few days to go through it all first.
So with the, like there's obviously political risk and community interest, when would those figures be open for public release and the like?
So first, through you, Worship, first things first, I just need some time to sit down and analyse it. Then I'll definitely talk with Jules and Steve, and then it'll be the decision on next steps and how we propose moving forward with how we communicate.
I'm just sorry, through you, Worship, too. This is just the high level pricing. We actually need to get to the detailed pricing because we need that before we can consider signing a contract. So it's probably going to be when we get to that detailed pricing where we have confirmation of the price cost for the contractor, when we can be able to release it publicly. We need that level of pricing, I would say.
Which is due in mid-July.
Councillor Finch, I'm back at 10 minutes.
Thank you. Is it looking good at the moment, can I ask?
I really don't want to comment at this stage because I haven't. He phoned me at 6 o'clock last night. I need some time to assess.
Fine.
I think through you, Your Worship, the comment on that too is because we're not sure what they've included that we had included separately. We can't tell you that until this initial analysis is complete.
Yeah, no, that's fine. The high street properties are going to have some repairs and maintenance work. Is that going to be a lot? What's that cost going to be added into? Where's it coming out of?
So, through your Worship, I'll ask Sharon to answer that because it's in Sharon's area.
Thank you. Through your Worship, we don't have the costs yet. We have had a builder and an electrician go through to check what is required, and because there was no electricity in the building, which was believed to be there, but when the people looked through it, it was full, so they couldn't test anything. And when they went through and it was empty, there was no electricity in the big shed. One property is perfect. It's absolutely nothing wrong with it at all.
That's the house.
Yes, the other one, and the shed out the back is, I believe it's on an angle like that. And so they're looking at what has to be done to that, but we don't have any pricing yet.
So would that have made a difference to the amount we paid if you'd done those things?
I'm unsure of that because I didn't negotiate this, I'm not sure, but.
We've got a registered valuation, so they would have done due diligence.
Those costs will be added to the amount we use to calculate the rental payments.
Right, okay, yeah. And the PowerNet, the new, big thing that needs put in, the transformer, thank you. That's not just for the pool though, the transformer, is it?
Through your Worship, so the current transformer is fit for purpose for the current utilisation.
Yes.
By putting the new building in, which is your big pool and library, it's estimated that our facility plus the current users, it would need to go up to a 750 kilovoltage size, which is a significant increase.
Yes.
And that is a significant dollar value that was escalated to the steering group last week. I think we had our meeting the week before.
Yeah. So that will be split between both facilities, I imagine, is it?
Through your worship, between the pool and the library, are you referring to?
Yes.
So you would assume that, however, I'm not in operations, so I can't confirm that.
Through you, your worship, too, there is an option to pay it off rather than have a capital cost, but we need to know the two options, so we look at the whole of life cost.
Yeah, so you'll let us know that as well, I assume.
It'll be part of the project evaluation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor McAtamney, followed by Kennedy and Graham.
No, I got an answer. It was July, the detailed cost.
Yeah. Councillor Kennedy, followed by Graham.
It's a shame that the property on Ajax couldn't be shifted. But, so that obviously will go out to a contractor to just demolition, or do they take it under a certain price and then they take out of the building what they want that can be sold on, or how does that one work?
So through you, worship, we've already got one contractor that had given us basically cost for the other demolition work. So we've approached them initially, costings associated with that. I had, in the original budget estimations that I put forward within the 19.4 million, I had estimated a dollar value for that if it was required. I'm pretty confident that it would fall well within that.
Thank you.
And we're selling some things that can be recovered now before demolition.
Yeah.
For whatever we can get for them.
Councillor Graham.
That's through you, Mr. Mayor. Just back to that transformer, it sort of confuses me. So do we have to pay for the full cost of that transformer? Because I see that if you put a bigger transformer in, you're going to be using more power, so they're going to be earning more from it. So why should we actually, or is that some deal that you come up with, or?
Through you, worship. So the current transformer for the current community's needs is fit for purpose, because we're proposing to put an additional facility which is significantly larger, which will consume approximately 600 more kilovolts than what is current required. It will be our expense.
So is that normal that, like, if someone decides to set up a business that and they need power, that the power net will come in and charge them for the transformer? Is that the usual carry on?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, the full line charges would cover it.
Well, there's
through you, worship. So that's what was in the report, which I raised to the steering group, that it can either be an initial, let's just say upfront capital cost because it's associated with the project, or you could do it as line charges going forward on an ongoing basis. And that could be a cost-effective way as well. But we just need I need all the information to start looking through it line by line. Because it is an additional cost that wasn't originally scoped.
Anything further for Don? If not, I think that is the last of them. Just before you go, Don, because I've got a question, it's probably not the right place, but I have to ask it at some point when we've gone through every other thing that we own in Milton just about. When we had the public meeting in Milton, the two corners of that building, of the hall, was soggy. And there was kids upstairs doing taekwondo and that. So I know that we passed it on. But let's say, because I was looking at that, have we ever done a check on that? Building's gone back a considerable amount in the last couple of years. Those two corners up the top are basically, like if it was my house, I would be terrified of it. Okay, it's not ours. But if the taekwondo kids collapse on through to the floor or something, who's responsible? Because it is sort of our hall.
No.
It's not, so there's no, and I well remember that what happened when Kaitankata, when we, the hall just eventually got past the point of no return. Do we have an obligation, right, or opportunity to intervene and say, hey guys, we should really be inspecting that to see what the options are before we don't have any options? I know those two corners, I'm not a builder, but I think we were all at that meeting, and that wall's in a mess.
So if I can, I haven't been to the last few meetings for the town hall committee ones, but the south side was really, really bad. It was allowing moisture in, and when you went into the first meeting room as you come through the main door, it was musty, it was wet on the inside walls. So that wall has all been done and it's all waterproof. There was a lot of money spent on that 2 years ago, probably now. And they have been looking at the roof and what they can do and stuff, but I can't give you an update recent, sorry.
Through you, Your Worship, they did come and ask us for money for that south wall as well, and council supported them to do that. So I would assume they would come back to us for.
Just on the night they're saying, oh yeah, you can't go within 2 metres of the wall or you'll fall through the floor and things like that. I go, there's a risk there for someone.
I've been up, because I did the women's self-defence class upstairs above that, and you can see in that corner that there is an issue, but they were looking at the roof because it was butane as well. And I can't remember all the ins and outs because it's also the spouting and stuff like that. So yeah, I'd have to.
I just think I felt I should have raised it because I think it was a real lesson that we learnt that once it's at the point of no return, it's no use going and talking about it.
So through you, Worship, so anything that is council-owned assets, my team look after those and work with the operations teams on that. Anything outside of that currently is outside of our scope.
Yeah, I get that, but all the community, you know, I'm just going back to the Kai Hall and the very first moment that hall gets closed down.
So the men's toilets were all redone as well.
Yep.
That's just recent.
I just wanted to raise it because
Yeah.
I think we all saw both corners. It's horrible. But anyway, we've got a recommendation back on page 32. Councillor Volwiller, seconded by Councillor Ludeman. Okay, put to the vote, no discussion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against. Now, what do we want to do, Tim? Because we've got a long time here. We're well ahead. We could break for a quarter of an hour and come back because we're here anyway until 1:30, aren't we? So, is that okay? up to do their report. Linda's going to explain, give us an explanation as to why she thinks she can leave without me vetoing it.
All of us.
They declined.
We'll do our. No, in fact, we're out of here before you are, so you're going to have to say goodbye to us.
Yeah, there you go.
But Linda's going to do the report for Karen and Daniel. So, the floor's yours, Linda.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Daniel's out in the field today, looking at water intakes and things up at North Bruce, I believe. So I'm here to present the report on his behalf. Have to take it as read and take any questions. I do note that our bacterial compliance results in March were better than February. So that's always a good thing. Oh, sorry, April were better than March. So an improvement. See where I need to leave. Happy to take any questions you've got.
Questions, team? Sorry, wait.
Can I just ask a dumb question, because there's no table, right? What does T3 and D3 mean?
Oh, so the T stands for treatment plant and the D is distribution network. So
we're getting tantalisingly close to all green pages.
yeah. Once we get the Balmoral Tuapeka scheme online, that will be a lot of reds off the page, and then we've got flat North Bruce, and I've got 7 months to get those compliant.
Yes.
Herbie's not here, so
I know, wasted.
I'm going to have to ask the question, because it is the anomaly now, the North Bruce and the Moa flat. And we keep saying something along the lines of it's going to take considerable costs or whatever. When you know, John will be asking it, no doubt, if he was here, what is the time frame for both Moa flat and North Bruce? If they are now the two anomalies by the time we get Clydevale's, on tap, what's the plan?
Worship, though, that's covered off in the standing committee for ice and ice and delivery this afternoon. But so for Moa flat, we've just almost at the end, or we've ended the second pilot that we've done there to look at some changes. I'm catching up.
Is that right?
No, it's not, still not giving us everything we need, but I'm not sure how close or how much further we're away from where we need to be. So I'm catching up with Ian Rabbits tomorrow. He's down here reviewing the results and working with the team on that. So we'll look at next steps for that. North Bruce has a different plan and current timetable as we're looking for the end of July for some modifications to the clarifier to be made. Maybe done earlier, but we've said end of July. And then the Philtech, who are the supplier of that plant, will run the plant. They're required to run it for 5 days compliantly before we will accept it as being compliant.
So it's a sort of a wider picture, because you know how we keep getting, if New Zealand all managed to hold hands one day and we had procurement and we only had 4 types of, 4 plants for all of New Zealand, and yet we're getting different results with just our wee few. Is that because they were all done different in the 1960s and we've got a historical, that one was built different? Or is it the environment? Is it the environment that causes it, or is it the way we built it in the 70s that we've got a historic problem? What are we dragging through?
There's certainly an element of historic versus current standards, but there is also, it's the quality of the water, or the water quality dictates the type of treatment plant you need. And even when I was out at Glenkennick a few weeks ago, someone said if you put the other plant type there, you would never have got close to being compliant. So it's definitely about your water source quality drives the type of treatment you need, which is why for Balmoral Tuapeka, it is a simple treatment process because the quality of the water out of the Clutha is so much better. So
the urban legend that, hey, New Zealand should just have 4 is actually naive. We do need a whole lot of different ones.
I'm not an expert enough to talk about what number there might be. There's different methodologies and order of doing things and quantities and fluctuations and things, but I don't think it's as simple as having 4 cookie cutter kind of models, plug and play.
Okay. Councillor Finch.
Thank you. So why wait till July for the North Bruce?
Oh, they've got to manufacture some pipes. So they're changing some, which are, big pipe work that's coming. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
So you have to get in a queue to get that stuff done.
Yes.
Councillor McTamaney.
So, yeah, thank you, Worship. So just coming back to what the Mayor said. So those two plants, in hindsight, should they have been built differently? Would we have been able to?
I don't have the expertise to comment on that.
Through you, Your Worship, potentially, but they may have also been 3 times the cost. So that's where it's a balance between cost and actually making it work. And the different, when we've talked about different water quality, most of the Clutha District's supplies are surface waters, which are more difficult to treat than if you've got a bore, which is the Clydeville, Pomahaka and Balmoral to Tuapeka. In lots of other places around the country, you can get water out of the bore, and then you've got a more simply, all through Canterbury, all through Central Otago, you can get good groundwater sources. Most of the groundwater in South Otago has iron or manganese, which is actually really hard to treat. And also, Glenkennick, Marflat and North Bruce are the 3 that have high colour, and Tapanui actually, high colour and low turbidity, which are notoriously difficult to treat, especially when it's really cold. So we sort of, you can't actually treat those with household solutions either. So if we just took that raw water and pumped it out, you need a really specific treatment system at the house. It's actually got to be a reverse osmosis system to remove that colour, because it's not. That's why the treatment process is quite difficult for the colour removal. We are looking at other options to potentially make it a little bit easier to comply, because they're actually bush and there's no intensive grazing in any of the upper catchments. One of the changes with the new water standards is we had argued they were a 3 log credit requirement for protozoa, which is easier to meet. Under the new standards, it's automatically gone to 4 for everywhere. So we're in discussions with Tamata Arawai about whether those specific catchments that are all forestry and not intensive grazing, we could do a risk assessment and move them back to 3, which would mean it's a little bit easier to comply for protozoa, because we think there's lower risk. So there's a whole raft of moving parts there dealing with Tamata Arawai and looking at the current treatment process, but also what will the compliance benchmark be going forward.
Councillor Valwela.
Thank you, Worship. First, just a comment. I see Moa Flat there is compliant. It's on page 64. It's compliant with the bacteriological standards. And when those plants were built, North Bruce and Moa Flat, we didn't have to worry about protozoal standards at all. So the plants were never built at that time to meet those standards. And just regarding the catchment areas there, have we ever done testing of the raw water coming into the plants there to see whether there's any bacteria, any E. coli or protozoa in those?
There definitely will be E. coli and potentially protozoa, but it's about the risk and the level. Like if it's, I'd have to double check if we've done testing, but certainly part of the discussion is you do a risk analysis, which is looking at the catchment and the type of load there. And usually one of the key criteria is intensive livestock farming, and there's none in the catchments for Glenkennick, Marflat or North Bruce. But there's still a process we are going to have to go through with Tamata Arawai, working through that risk assessment process.
Have I thought of them differently? Sorry, Bruce,
No.
Yeah, well, Clutha takes out the river and we go find, well, what's all on there? Moa Flat, with, how we bought that, there's that big, beautiful, big sort of native catchment area. I thought that would have been the most pristine sort of one in the district to take water out.
It's pretty good, but when Tamata Arawai changed the rules, there were risks with other court sources beforehand. They pretty much said any surface water needs a 4 log credit requirement. And that's where we're saying, actually, might make sense for most. Actually, we don't think it makes sense for some of these. And that's the process that Linda and her team have started discussing with Tamata Arawai about doing a risk assessment on those catchments and potentially still have protozoa requirements to meet the standards, but go to a 3 log credit rather than the current 4 log credit That's not been confirmed and still has to be worked through with Tangata Aroa.
So, because I know Mayor Crouch has been going, all that the rural had to do is slap a filter on the side of the house and that's going to fix it all. And we're going, no, it's not, the filter won't work. But you said the words with the machine, reverse osmosis. I don't know what that is. Is it financially conceivable that you can put a reverse osmosis machine on your house? Or is
pretty expensive? I mean, we'd have to do detailed analysis, but they're quite expensive. There's high energy costs, and you have, in terms of the replacements, it's quite significant as well. So the other issue is we've still got to take most of the lumps out of the system too and pump it through.
So you need a filter and a reverse.
And look, it's reverse osmosis is unusual. It's a type of membrane, like the highest quality membrane system you can get, basically, which it's actually got a physical. There's no little pores like we have in our membrane systems. It's what they use in the dairy industry to separate casein and those sorts of things from whey. They're quite expensive to run. Haven't looked at it specifically for us, but it's not a normal household system. For these ones, for our ones compared to Canterbury or groundwater somewhere else, it's not just a basic filtration system. It's a specialised household filtration system.
And they do exist in the regulations, Your Worship. They're called acceptable solutions. Te Mara I call them, and they are for generally small populations. So our population numbers would prohibit them being a solution for us.
Stop it.
Primarily, yeah.
Because is that the 1,000 figure?
No, it's less than that, but I don't know the number off the top of my head, sorry.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Linda. Report, recommendation back on page 60. Who did that? I'll go with Councillor Payne, Councillor Finch seconding. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against, thank you. Oh man, you're going nowhere. 10-month report. The floor is yours, Linda.
Thank you. So this is our, looking at our 10-month cost year to date, some of which I need Reed's expertise, depending on the questions you ask me. Just take it as read.
Questions, team?
Well, I guess the question is, we are over budget.
Yes, we are.
Considerably. So.
For operation expenditure?
Yeah.
Yes. 5% over. So, remembering that this is our first kind of real year of operations. So,
True.
And we're still, managing costs. We're still mindful. I'm not sure that I can find $1 million of savings between now and the end of June, unfortunately.
We're also under income.
Yes, so that's our rates. So that's just the timing of the rates. So
but not entirely. When I went and talked to you about it yesterday, I just said that yes, there's a lot of that, but we're still going to come in under. Is that right? So I picked it up.
For revenue? I'm not sure what the numbers are for the rates. Whether that will regularise. We'll be there or thereabouts. In fact, some of the other fees and things are what they are. We can't charge unless someone has a service. We know that the OCF revenue target isn't going to be met. That's because they're using less water. It's not for any other reason. But it's the expenditure where we can really control things.
Further questions, team? Okay. That's what it is, isn't it? It's only 2 months to go. It's starting to solid up, but that's all right.
I guess it gives reality, a little bit of reality for when you're doing your budget going forward, do you think?
So we've already done the budget for next year. So, and we used obviously our actuals and then tried to annualise them, and then they would have had inflation adjustments as well. So I think going forward, we're hoping that it'll be better aligned.
Yeah.
So I've got Councillor Grant to thank and then Councillor McAtee.
Yeah, mine was just a comment that I don't envy anybody trying to set a budget for water. It's, unless you're like Christchurch or something that's got brand new infrastructure, even though the lifespan of that might be 80 years or something. The changing with it, you don't know. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not doing it.
Through your worship, having managed the Christchurch infrastructure in my previous role, we still had about 3,500 jobs a month that we responded to.
Wow.
So nothing's perfect in the water world.
So,
Yeah, thank you. Linda, just to clarify, you're talking about next year's budget, so we roughly needed another $1 million of operating expenditure. So the budget that we've gone forward into the annual, you're assuming that next year will roll pretty similar to?
I actually asked Sharon yesterday when we were going to see next year's budget, because I put my numbers in, and then it goes through a process. I lose sight.
Yes.
So I'll wait to see what comes back out the sausage machine to see what I've got to work with.
So have we allowed for, when we did the annual plan, have we allowed for this extra expenditure in next year's budget and rate?
Through you, Your Worship, what we do is we pull out all the different parts that belong to different people and send them out for them to review. And then when that comes back, we put them back in, and then bring it to you guys and they review the projects and stuff like that. So until we pull it back out to send back out again, I can't tell you exactly what went in. The input comes from, there was input from Linda at the very beginning, and then Jules as well for water and stuff.
So what I'm meaning is, if say next year you achieved the same result, would we expect $1 million loss on the next year's council finances?
We would like to hope not, but that'll depend what did end up in the budget.
So through your worship, we've had some big cost blowouts which we've touched on, like our consultancy, for example. So I think I had $25,000 for consultants for the year, and we've spent almost 700, and that's a fact of life. So 25 is obviously never going to be enough. Things like our training budget that gets set on a certain basis. We have to train our operators. Each person costs $8,500 to register, plus their block courses. All of that stuff is part of our operation. So we've put in the budget I submitted indicated how many people I thought would need that training in this financial year, but it may, depending what's happened with the rest of the organisation, it may not have got across the line.
But through you, a lot of that training, a lot of the consultancy budget was when we had specific wastewater support, which was stopped last year. So there's the ongoing stuff, but the bulk of that higher consultancy budget had been stopped for most of this calendar year at least. And that was adjusted in the budget too.
Ever concern me, option 1, 2 and 3. The options that we're looking at and the figures that we were using were not counting 1.7 million and overrun, but it doesn't exist. We were going through with the budget from the long-term plan last year, so consequently that's $1.7 million that we haven't counted this year, that we're sort of saying could quite literally just keep on rolling on. So I'm trying to think, we've got in 2027, which is coming near, we for options 2 and 3, we hit our debt limit, and then we drift off for 2 or 3 years, and in 2033 we have an extended period of a number of years where we're right up to the debt limit. But that debt limit's not counting that. So if we continued at 1.7 million every year till 2033, 34, 35, we're looking at, because if our debt's exhausted, there's only one place to go to take that, and that's rates. Well, that's year on year about a 5% increase. Yeah, that's 5% increase in rates that we haven't even accounted on. Am I right with that? Is that a fair way of looking at an unbudgeted 1.7 million and 3 months?
Through you, Your Worship, if I understood what you just said correctly.
Yep.
You were saying that if we, excuse me, if we have an overrun of 1.7 every year, that we will have to borrow to fund it.
Yeah.
That would be correct. Will we go to rates?
Yeah, and we can't, in 2027 for option 2 and 3 when we're at that 280%. We smack that in 27, we touch it, and we more than touch it going out. So if we can't debt fund it, we've got to rate fund it, which means that all those rate trajectories going out, we've got to consider that's fair weather rate trajectory. Three Waters is bouncing along this year at 1.7. We kept doing it. Next year's 26%, 24% rate increase is 29%. And the next year's. These are the things we've got to be thinking of, because the figures were taken from the long-term plan. There's a fragility in doing that, and we already know what it means. These are the questions we've got to be asking ourselves when we consider the options. But because last year it was said, look, it's the first year at Crown Street. There's going to be some wobbles until we know what those wobbles are. But then once we've got it, we'll be right. Well, we're into year 2 now, and we're still wobbling. I'm not being smart, but that's just how it is, isn't it? It's wobbling.
I think when we set the budget for this current year, that we set that in September 23. So I think we've been operating for 4 months or something.
Yeah. Yeah, but the argument last year was, hey, that's just the first year, and now we know what we're doing, it's going to go away. It hasn't, and like you said with Christchurch, problems never go away.
Through you, Your Worship, the first year we didn't alter the budgets at all because we had absolutely no idea how to. Last year we did alter them with more knowledge. And this year we've altered them again with more knowledge. So.
Refining them. But what I'm saying is the figures that we are calculating for this big decision in a few weeks' time are long-term plan figures. These aren't counted in them. Simon.
Can I just keep on this track? So the rate money, last year we borrowed to offset water rates. So does that sit in those internal transfers in this budget? Yes. Yeah, because that will, that's sort of problematic for the water charges going forward if we're in an combined entity, because that will go straight onto water charges. So we haven't,
There's a lot of, when you start thinking the details, there's a lot of, I won't get into it, but possibly
we can't do that under a water entity. They won't do that. They won't borrow to offset.
Well,
you'd
imagine they'll put it on the cost. If we do finish earlier, because there's another thing I wanted to talk to you about. I didn't get a chance of executive that's come out of all of this that's just gone back into my brain. Are we exhausted the questions?
I'll move that we receive the report.
Thank you, Councillor Wawela, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against, thank you. And then Greg and Trey, welcome, Tate.
Thank you, Your Worship. Company. Treasury Manager. I'll take this read. I'll just make a couple of points for my report. So as you'll see on page 73, our actual borrowings at the moment for LGFA are 144.8 million, and we're predicting an additional 4 million to the end of June. So you'll see a little bit more detail about that coming up in Trey's report next. Just noting that that's still under the budgeted LTP projected borrowings of 165,334. Just a couple of notes about a couple of changes to the cost of funds and debt graph. You might notice a couple of extra lines on that. That's just a slight change in calculation by a Treasury advisor at Bancorp. So basically what they're doing is they're just saying that they're now calculating the cost of debt based on floating debt and swap rates being based on the actual roll date, rather than assuming they will roll at the end of the month. In each month, as in the previous debt and co model that they used. And in terms of accuracy, the cost of funds tool pulls the data from monthly LGFA updated extracts and therefore gets the correct reset rate for fixed and floating debt. So that's just to explain the change in the graph there. The next page shows the breakdown of the debt by activity area, updated since last time. And on page 76 is a further breakdown by those requested categories of economic development, community services and internal services. One thing you might ask is why camping grounds has a negative balance of 53,000. That takes into account that we received sale proceeds of 289,000 for Taylor Park cabin sales, and so we'll make an adjustment at year end when we do the funding allocation wash up of that. And I guess I've attached the Melbourne Jessup Weaver quarterly report to March 2025. We would have had that in last time, but it wasn't quite available at the time of publishing the agendas. So just a couple of brief notes on what they're saying in there. We're just discussing about there being high market volatility and uncertainty as a result of the US national trade policy and tariffs, and the short-term expectation is for this volatility to continue. Just take any questions or discussion.
Questions for Greg, please, Tim. I've got one, Greg, page 76, there to the way down, Clutha Community Hub. We owe $7,084,000. Is that the $7.5 million debt? And we are paying principal? Because I didn't think we were paying principal. I thought we were only paying interest on that. And yet it's no longer at 7.5 million, it's at 7,084,000.
Pretty sure it's interest and principal.
So we are paying, oh, well, that's good. I thought we were only paying interest on it. Good. Questions? Okay. I had a talk with Greg yesterday. My apologies for harping back to the bigger picture, but once again, considering option 2 and 3 and how we touched the debt max 2733, and you'll notice that in page 73 borrowing dashboard we're at 144, 148, and we were predicted to be at 160 something. Greg, what was it?
Yeah, 165.
So I'm thinking, oh, bloody neat, we're $13 million down, so that means that we saved some money and we're going to breach it. Virtually all the 13 million was only carried forward timing saving, and we're going to catch that up long before 2027. So unfortunately, the 13 million that I thought we were going to come down from the debt max doesn't exist. That one, debt yielding. I'm saying it just so the guys know walking into, because I thought straight away 13 million were coming away from the Plimsoll line, but we're not. It's just carry forwards. Come 3 months' time, they will have done the projects where we'll have incurred the debt and we'll be back where we were. Simon.
Yeah, can I just ask, the internal services debt, okay, so that's through various things, how much of that is water related and how much of that would potentially be taken over by the
Through your worship, at the top of the internal service, we've got water ops and water management. So those are the two internal services that relate directly to water. So it's 9.4 million for water ops.
Well, in the entity, but that's debt that's occurred, it hasn't come through the water charges. Has it been confirmed that the entity will take on debt for previous operating losses?
I presume that they're going to take the 93 come 96, because that's Three Waters category, and they take that. Is that right, John?
As far as we know.
And through you, Your Worship, too, I mean, with the structure we're proposing, that'll be funded from the area it's come from anyway. So I don't see why there wouldn't be all of that water-related debt going into the entity. That's what we're ring-fencing.
And has that been included in the Morrison and Lowe estimate charges?
Yeah. Yeah, so the 93 not only is ring-fence, but then your water,
the losses from the internal services has that been, those water operating losses, has that been included in the debt going through to the entity and the estimated water charges, the cost of?
I'm not 100% sure.
Because we're paying ourselves.
Sorry. You've got to be careful too, because Morrison Low haven't done their water charges based on our funding model. They've done it based on looking at costs and then looking at how that gets funded. So I wouldn't be able to confirm that without talking to Morrison Low, but they haven't looked at our rating as well, which is why early on in the piece, their estimated water charges are higher than their actual rates in the LTP, because they haven't taken into account that change in timing that we've done through debt. So we'll have to talk to them about that to confirm.
It's important because the way we roll into it, you're going to have the individual regions' water charges. So all these numbers sit on the water use charges that people have credited. And it's just whether that's been accounted in their workings.
I would imagine it will have, because we're the ones taking the debt through, the other three aren't to the same extent, and they'll be looking at it like anything. They're really nervous about what we're doing with our debt. Further questions, Tim? And there's a few things to think of, aren't there? Any further questions for Greg or the team? If not, Greg, thank you. I'll go to a recommendation back on page 72. Someone please move Councillor Ludman, second Councillor Wheeler. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Cheers, Greg. Colin Trey, how are you?
Kia ora everyone. Just a few points. So the first being for the cash flow, we're predicting borrowings of 6 mil, but that's because 2 million is being rolled over on Monday. So it's really 4 mil of new debt, 6 mil overall, 2 mil being repaid. And for the statement of comprehensive revenue and expenditure, essentially for the revenue at the moment, we're predicting to be 2 mil light, which is mainly due to the changing of the roading program and lower fees and charges income. And the expenditure at the moment, it's predicted to be 9.5 over, but if you take out the over budget depreciation, which we're not funding, it's about 1.3 million under, which leaves the total surplus deficit, if you take away the depreciation overrun, is about 800k over what we thought. So outside of that, I'm happy to take any questions.
I suppose I've got to make the question on this. The only one that confused me was I was looking at the corporate policy report, and we're still using two different systems in reporting. One this afternoon is quite different. The statement of revenue expenditure is quite a different report to this.
It is.
The numbers, I figured it out. They look different. Then I worked out the different columns and things. It's the same answer. I would have thought you'd use the same one for each meeting.
We can. I didn't get that from the workshop we had to change it all around. I thought one was to stay the same and one was to totally change. But we can. It's whether you want to see year to date rolled up, whether you want to see the separate months, how it's what you want to see. We can do, because it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same way we work it out. We just chop it differently.
Yeah. After the one after lunch has got to be another 3 columns or 4 columns. Yeah, that's right. It just surprised me that they're different. Yeah.
So are you meaning you're wanting to see more of the actuals, months?
I just thought they'd be the same.
One from here in corporate.
Have to think about what you want to see, and this afternoon we'll sort it out. We'll just bring a different one. You can have whatever you like.
Yeah, that's all. It's not a, yeah. The answer's still the same on both.
Yes.
That was the important. Yeah.
So, am I reading this right, that we're predicting a deficit twice as bad as what we originally budgeted?
No, deficit.
We've got a full year,
Yes,
we've got a full year budget there of 12, a deficit of nearly just over 12 million, and now we're saying we've got a full year prediction of nearly 24.
Yes, so that's with the depreciation going up so high as a result of the roads and bridges mainly. But that's not funded, so it's not actual cash. But yes, overall with the cash side of it, it's about an 800K difference to what we have in the budgets, predicted to the end of the year.
And that's 800 on the good side.
Otherwise.
Other way.
Never on the good side.
No, yeah, I'm trying to work out the break. Yeah, you've got that 10,849 and then 9,532. I get what you mean, but.
So
that's part of that figure that we were talking about before. That's going to create long term the 1.7 million, the breaches our debt, but that's already part of it. Isn't it?
So if that depreciation number was exactly as budgeted, it would be, the deficit would be 800 more than what's in the budget.
It's that, yeah, the depreciation one that throws you out every time. Further questions, Tim? If not, thank you, Trey. Back to page 91, got a recommendation there.
Happy to move.
Move, councillor Finch, second, councillor Wheeler. All those in favour?
Aye.
All right. Those against? Thank you. That brings the meeting to a close. Cheers, staff.